So it's getting towards the end of the year, and I thought it might be fun to talk about some of my favorite plugins this year. So the plugins that I use, there are some that have stuck around for years and years and years, and I love them, and I still love them. And then there are some that kind of fall in and out, right? Maybe I use them for a while and I love them. Maybe I use them briefly and decide I don't love them. Maybe I use them and love them, but get distracted because I start using something else instead that I like slightly more. Um, and then sometimes it has to do with, what genre I'm working on, what type of stuff I'm working on, what kind of tools I'll need will change depending on what I'm working on, right? So that does affect it as well. But what I wanted to talk about today is I just have this session open. This is the session, I used it for the last video that I filmed too. So if you saw that recently, it's the same session. So it's the Clance and I'm Set the Brakes song that I made with Evan Diamond. I will link to Clance and I'm's and Evan's stuff as well in the description below. It's shameless self-promotion because I made the music for this. I made the beat. But I'm allowed to share the session. So here we are. So this session I did fairly recently, like a month or a couple months ago. So I think pretty much any plugin that I'm using constantly will be in this session is kind of the theory. So what I want to do is just kind of look at what I have open here and tell you what I've been using constantly and why I tend to use it maybe a little bit. All right, so first of all, this one's super easy, is the Fabfilter Pro-Q3. Whenever I'm using EQ, this is one of the first ones I almost always reach for. I use this in every single session. I love this EQ. I usually go over to the flat 7 bands and then I will switch over to natural phase when I'm mixing, and then I'll just go for it. So in this instance, this is on a vocal track. I just cut the lows and I'm boosting this range within her vocals a little bit to help it pop. But I'll use this on a whole range of different things. It's in every session I work on, literally every single session. So I love this plugin. This is definitely on the list. Another one that's definitely on the list is the CLA2A. So this is mimicking the LA2A. I love this plugin. I have another video about this plugin where I talk about this knob here. So maybe I'll link to that in the cards. But I love this plugin. Everyone loves this plugin. Everyone loves this. Anything that emulates the LA2A or is an LA2A, people love. It's great on vocals. I use it on vocals all the time to help them kind of get up there and pop. But it's just a compressor plugin. I use it on a range of different things. But this is in almost every single session that I use, that I do as well. Another one that I use on almost everything nowadays is the Fabfilter Pro-MB. So this is their multi-band compressor. And in this case, I'm using it, I believe this is my vocals aux track. So let's look. It's a comp. Oh, it's vocal doubles. So yeah, same idea. So what I'm doing here is I think I'm just controlling a little bit of this frequency range. It was probably a little like harsh, or yeah, it probably sounded kind of harsh to me. So I'm just kind of probably cutting it down a little bit. I'd use it for that kind of thing a lot. So controlling frequencies that get a little bit harsh when they get too loud. And then I'll use it for like putting my bass in mono. I'll use it to help control things like bass. I use it on bass a lot. The instrument, not just the frequency range. I'll use it to control like this-ish range a lot. So like the 300 to 500, maybe 600-ish range. And I'll use it to kind of control that and make the bass sound more like tight and punchy, depending on the genre, of course. This track, I let it be a little warmer, I think. Let me look at the bass. What did I do here? Bass. Yeah. So that's like what I did. This one I did a good amount of range here with the frequency. So yeah, with bass guitar, a lot of times we like it very compressed sounding. So there's not a ton of dynamic range for the actual instrument. So a lot of times I will put a ton of compression on bass. Again, it depends on the genre, but then also added control, right? You can compress the different frequency ranges for the bass in different ways, right? So I've heard people call, I think it's like this one they'll call the primary and this one they'll call the secondary, or stuff like that for the frequency ranges for the bass. So it's like the bass is primary, frequency range, secondary. But basically this is kind of like the, it's kind of more of the muddiness, and this is more of like the low oomph. So I do like to control these separately sometimes. And it just depends on what's coming in and then what you want going out, right? But I do use Fabfilter Pro-MB a lot. And sometimes I'll do like little stem tracks. Like here I have all my vocals routed to this track before going out to the master fader. And with that, I will often do very minimal processing, but I will add a Pro-MB on it. pretty often, just to do like some subtle sculpting of the different frequency ranges. So that's another one. In terms of reverbs, it's pretty much, I'm going to hold shift so I can open multiples at a time here. I'm going to open these two. So reverbs, I've been using the Verbsuite Classics a ton. I love this one. It's emulating digital reverbs. So if you want to emulate like a specific digital reverb, it has a ton in here that you can emulate. It's a lot of fun. And then I also love all of the Valhalla. So I love their Supermassive. I love their Vintage Verb. I have their Room, I think. What do I have by them? Let's look. But all of the Valhalla plugins, I love every single one that I have. So I only have 3, but I love them. This one's free, Supermassive. I've mentioned this before on my channel, but it's hard for me not to just use these on everything. So I really love them. So Valhalla, and then the Verbsuite Classics. Those are kind of, most of the time when I reach for a reverb, it's one of those lately. I don't know why. I just like them. Let's see. I will use this compressor pretty often, especially if I want to do side chaining. I'll use this a lot for side chaining. But yeah, anything Fabfilter I love. But this one I do use pretty often in my sessions. I usually don't have a million instances of them the way I do with like the Pro-Q3, but I do use this one pretty often. And then I have been using, I'm almost afraid to admit this, but I have been using Fresh Air a good amount. I'll do like very minimal movements with Fresh Air. I don't want to overdo it. I feel like it's the type of plugin that you can really overdo if you're not careful. But I will occasionally use it. I do use it pretty often. I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't know why I'm embarrassed to admit that, but it's a good one. It's a good one. Just don't overdo it. I think a lot of people are overdoing this one. So that's my statement on that one. I have been using it though. What else? I still love Indent by Unfiltered Audio. This one I use a ton for distortion. They have a bunch of different distortion options. You can actually like patch these into modulations and stuff as well. I'm often just using it for some distortion, and I'll often automate this to have different levels of distortion throughout the mix, depending on like verse versus chorus and stuff like that. But I love it. I love the type of distortion that it adds. I've been using this a lot on bass. So it's Waves. Yeah, Waves. It's MV2. I've been using this a ton on bass. It helps you really like squash that dynamic range and really bring it up and in your face. Sometimes if you overdo it, it'll get like too clicky or something weird like that. But you know, just listen. It's like any plugin, right? Just listen. But I've been really liking this one. And this one I believe it's like a type of compressor or limiter. Let's see. It's in dynamics. But yeah, I love it. I love this plugin. And this is one of the newer ones that I've started using more recently. So I might not have mentioned this a ton in my other videos, but I have been using this on bass, on other instruments too, but mostly on bass like all the time now. And I have been using Boost a good amount. It's another one of those compressor limiters that you can use. It's supposed to be very clean sounding. I will use it for like if I just want a clean lift on my signal. And it's made by Ursa DSP. So these guys, Ursa DSP. But I like this one. I like this one a lot. It's pretty good. Oh, another one that I've been using a ton is STL Tone's AmpHub. I really love this one. This one, I've been putting it on things like people's guitars, stuff like that, to kind of add more texture and tone and sculpt the tone. It's a lot of fun for that. I've used it for some more like weird applications where it's not on a guitar. The obvious use for it is on like a guitar or a bass, right? But it's basically pedal and then amp simulations. You can simulate, you know, what microphone you're putting on the speaker cab, what type of speaker cab you're using, all that stuff. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to sculpt your tone, and then you can also add some effects here with these pedal simulations. So this one's really good. I've been using this most sessions. I think almost most sessions lately I've been using it. It kind of depends on what I'm working on, but a lot of sessions lately I've been using it. And I did do a video on this, so I'll put a link to that in the cards as well. I think that's most of them without going into the master fader. I just did a video on what's on my master fader, so I'm not going to go into these right now, but I will put a card for that up on the screen so you can check that out. It's going to be the video right before this one, so you can also just look on my channel if you want. But other than that, the only other plugins that I've been using a ton, and these aren't as often, is the H delay. Let me see. The decapitator, which I actually have bypassed in this case. Anything Soundtoys I love. This is Soundtoys, right? Yeah. Oh, it says right here. I could have just looked right there. I have used this a good amount too. It's just the delay that comes with Pro Tools. And then I do like Ovox still. I don't use it as much as I used to, but I still like this one. This is great for adding like making things weird, right? So you know, it's kind of like a weird vocoding tuning kind of thing. But it's a lot of fun. So I still use this a good amount if I want to do something weird, not as much as I used to. And then with this one, with the delay, it's just the delay that comes with Pro Tools. So it's the Mod Delay 3, I believe. Mod Delay 3, made by Avid. And I'll use this sometimes if I want to adjust the timing ever so slightly for a track. Sometimes I'll throw this on instead of nudging it, just so I can kind of like test how, you know, different lengths without actually moving the file. It's easier to undo this, right? So I'll do that. And then sometimes I'll use this to create like a Haas effect kind of thing where I'll have the left and right channel delayed slightly differently. Sometimes, you know, like one will be like 20 milliseconds and the other will be nothing or something like that. So I'll use this for that kind of thing. A lot of it has to do with Haas effect or timing. Because sometimes people will play and they'll be like a little ahead or whatever, and I'll use this to kind of offset that. So there's that one. And then this one's great. I just did a video on this, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but I did a video on what each of these buttons does. But I have been using this a good amount. So this one's great. It's another way you can add harmonic distortion to things. This one is actually emulating physical hardware units. So that's what each of these buttons are. Again, I'll put a card up on the screen for it, but I still like this one a lot for adding that distortion or, you know, changing the tone of whatever you're working on. And then I think this is the last one I'll talk about. This one I use much more rarely, right? But I'm still using it fairly often. It's the H delay. So this is made by Waves, and I will use this if I want a delay that's a lot more affected sounding. So a delay that's kind of been like funked up. It adds like some analog tone. I forget exactly what it's doing to it, but you can really change the tone in addition to adding a delay with this one. So I like this effect a lot, especially if you're going to add like ad-lib vocals or something like that. It can be a lot of fun to put this on that and see how it sounds. So that's one that I use fairly often, but usually this is only in my session like once if it's in there. But I do use it a good amount. So yeah, I think that's about it. Those are the plugins that I've been using a ton this year. I think that's probably most of them, although maybe if I opened up a different session, I might see one or two that aren't in this session that I've been using a lot. But that's fine. I can always do another video about those. Let me look at everything here. Yeah, see, if we want to go into digital instruments, it would be it would be like a whole nother video worth of stuff. I'm still using this fairly often, not as often as I used to, but and you know, for anyone that's I guess listening, that's the BX refinement. I use that one a good amount. But yeah, that's probably all I should mention. I use Patchwork, but that's for a different thing. I have a video about that too. I guess I can put that in the description or something. But yeah, if I wanted to go into like digital instruments, that could be a whole nother video. But I think that's about it for today. I think that's good for today, right? That's probably good for today. So I hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you like these plugins. If you have others you would add to the list. I love trying new plugins, hearing about new plugins. Not that we necessarily need more plugins. Sometimes people feel pushed to buy things that they don't really need. We don't actually need very many plugins, but they're still fun to use. And yeah, I'm talking in circles. So I guess that's about it. Let me know what you think. As always, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'd appreciate all of that stuff. And I do have a Patreon. So lately I've been focusing on the Discord server for my Patreon patrons and the book club that we've been running in there. And they do get early release videos, and I have some additional content on my website for them. So if you feel so inclined, check that out. It helps support my channel. And other than that, I come out with new videos every Wednesday. And thanks so much for hanging out. Okay. God, Evan's texting me.